Well, welcome everybody. I'm Josh Singer, the DC Parks and Rec Community Garden Specialist, and today I'm going to give a virtual tour with lots of little mini lessons of Lederer Gardens, an acre farm, a communal farm that we run through DC Parks and Rec. So at DC Parks and Rec, I've been working with in the Urban Ag Division for almost a decade. I do a lot of things from building gardens and farms to building support systems like tool shares, greenhouse cooperatives, lots of educational classes, composting, all different kinds of things. But today we're going to check out one of our newest programs called the Communal Farm, which is actually started during the pandemic, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, welcome. Let's come on in to Lederer Gardens. So as you can see, if you come out soon, we have tons of ripe raspberries. Lots of black raspberries, red raspberries, blueberries, elderberries. So we're a big fan of berries here. So we plant a lot of berries around here. All right, and this is Lederer Gardens. So Lederer Gardens is actually 50 years old. It was started in the 70s, and it was really great for a while, but in the last decade it had a lot of issues, particularly around flooding and different things like that. So just recently, this past year, this last year, we got it all going again. Renovated, did a lot of work, which I'll talk about later, about dealing with the flooding issues, and then started a new program out here that we just started during the pandemic called Communal Farms. So we have multiple different ways that we grow. So we have over 50 different urban ag sites in DC Parks and Rec. Most of them, about 35 of them, are community gardens where individuals get their own personal plot, and then we organize them in a kind of co-op, and they manage the space. We have 7 different partner urban farms where we partner with different nonprofits like Dreaming Out Loud at the farm at Kelly Miller, DC Greens at a new one, the Well at Oxen Run, Common Good City Farm, a couple City Blossoms, where they work on growing as much food as possible or doing like education and things like that. But then recently, during the pandemic, we created a new program called Communal Farms, and this actually started at Edgewood. We built a new rec center with our first rooftop farm, and right when we opened it up was the pandemic hit in March of 2020. It's going to be, we had all these different plans for it, all got canceled, and we had all these extra seedlings, so we just decided to let's just grow as much food as possible. People are struggling, to find not only food but like healthy food. So we just thought, let's grow as much food as possible, do weekly veggie giveaways, allow people to come, get hands-on. We'll grow communally, we'll provide education and program opportunities, and we'll do weekly veggie giveaways. So that started with Edgewood in 2020, and then we expanded this to Lederer Gardens in 2021. And what's great about this is there's a little bit of everything for people. People can come, they can get hands-on experience, people can come, or if they're busy, they can come during our veggie giveaways, which is every Tuesday starting from May to December at Edgewood 11 to 12, and now at Lederer every Wednesday 11 to 12. And we also do weekly email updates. If you don't remember that, just send me an email. I'll put you on it, and every Sunday we send out an email full of volunteer opportunities and harvesting opportunities and all different kinds of things. But as you can see out here, we have a little bit of everything. We have a part of this is still community garden plots. So we have 20 community garden plots where people come and they can manage their own plots. But then everything on this side is our communal farm. And last year we grew and gave away over 4,500 pounds of produce to a local community. We're located, Lederer Gardens is located right in the middle of Marvin Gaye Park in Ward 7, 4801 Nanny Hill and Burroughs. We have a lot of food insecurity, a lot of needs. And one of the reasons why we do our veggie giveaways during the weekdays is one of our main targets of trying to get the food is senior populations, so food insecure senior populations, which we have a lot in this area. So that's why we do it during the weekdays. And then we also have self-harvesting opportunities. Like if you're working during the weekdays, you can still come out on the weekends and harvest yourself. But our big veggie giveaways are during the weekdays. And we'll take a tour of this farm in a little bit, but I want to start with our first, have a good day. I want to start with our first mini lessons on our greenhouse, so follow me. So this greenhouse was also built in the 70s. It was 50 years old, so it took. We've been working on renovating this greenhouse. We actually got a couple sustainable DC grants a while ago to renovate a lot of the climate systems. So we renovated the heaters, the cool walls, a lot of our vents and stuff, and we got it to the point where it's a pretty functional greenhouse. And this is our largest greenhouse. So we grow all of our seedlings from multiple farms here and multiple programs, and we have what we call our greenhouse cooperative program, where we allow nonprofits to come in and to also grow as well. So we have Common Good City Farm that grows all their seedlings in here. That's an awesome farm in Shaw. We have Marvin Gaye Greening Center that's right down the street that grows a lot of food, and we gives it away during our veg giveaways as well. And we have this really amazing group called DC Mutual Aid Apothecary. It was started during the pandemic. It's a mutual aid group of herbalists who grow a lot of herbal plants and give away herbal medicines for free in the community. So definitely we'll be doing, we're going to partner with them. We already did a lot of plant giveaways, but we're going to be working on medicine, herbal medicine workshops as well. So it's really exciting for them. But our first workshop, we're going to learn about propagating. So we do a lot of propagation. As I mentioned, we love berries, but berries are expensive. I mean, who's got money to buy a bunch of raspberries? So instead, we propagate them to save a lot of money. And there's a lot of different ways to propagate. Some of the easier ones, like strawberries and raspberries, they shoot these lateral roots that run sideways and start new baby plants. And all you have to do is cut that lateral root, scoop that baby plant, and then you have a new strawberry. But then there's other ways as well, which I'm going to show you two different ways here. One I'm going to show you is cuttings. So this is a really fantastic way. You can do this any time of the year, but we tend to do this during the end of winter, like February, March. And this is a great way to produce a whole lot of plants. So this is actually a grapevine. So you want to get something that's like pencil size, give or take. I've seen people do larger or smaller, but I mean, ideally pencil size. You want to, have a decent, you want to have like woody growth. Like this is New Year growth, green growth. This is probably going to rot before it develops roots, but this will likely develop roots before it rots. And the idea behind this is you want to locate these nodules. So these are little nodules right here, and this is where the roots come out in the soil, and then the ones above the soil, the leaves are going to come out. And you want 2 nodules in the soil, and then 1 to 2 nodules outside. So I'm going to cut this out. I got this nice, branch. And then I use this root hormone. You don't have to, but this is going to increase your chances of survival. You got to make sure it's right side up. Don't put it upside down. And then we got some soil that's potting soil. You want well-drained soil, because if it stays wet, it's going to rot. And then I just stick it right here. I bury 2 nodules, and voila. And then ideally, though, even successful propagator, I typically have about a 30% survival rate. So that's why I do multiple ones, where I'll do a bunch of them, and then if I lose a couple, that's all right, because I have a whole bunch, left over. And then if you have the leaves in here, that's okay too. Let's see. Okay. But what I do with the leaves is I'll cut them in half, because there's a thing called transpiration. That's where leaves actually, they absorb water and they use some of the water in the plant, and then you shoot out the rest of the water like an AC unit, air conditioned. And there's no roots replenishing that water. It's going to dry out quicker. So that's why I might cut the leaves in half, put the root and hormone, and then put it in here. And then I would water this really well. And then for the first week, we do what's called a humidity dome. When we put this humidity dome over, it's very loosely, don't tie it, because you want some circulation to come in, and that's going to trap humidity in there, and that's going to stimulate root growth. And then after about a week, I will take it off. I'll very gently give it a little tug, and if I feel a little resistance, that means we got some roots growing. And then I'm going to pull this off and just water it. The hardest part, though, is watering. You want this to stay moist. You don't want it to dry out, but you also don't want to get too wet. So you want to definitely do the finger test, check If it's wet, you know, if it's still wet, don't water it, and you want to try to get it right when it starts to dry out, and then water it again. So that's cuttings. You could definitely try lots of cuttings with us. The easiest cutting ever is figs. So this is a fig tree from a cutting. Oh, this is actually grape. I'm sorry, this is a grape. Grapes are pretty easy too. This is a fig. You can't go wrong with fig tree. If you like fig trees, we propagate tons of fig trees. Come on out, we'll have some to give. So that's cuttings. And then we have divisions. This is another really easy one. So this is a lavender plant that we got nice sized root ball. But they, you know, this is a perennial, meaning it comes back, you know, it stays alive every year and it gets bigger and bigger. So eventually it'll take over. So it's a good idea every couple years to pull your perennial plants out, you know, kind of, and then just divide them, put them in different pots and give them away, plant them in different spots. So this, you can be as hard as, you know, rough as you want. You just kind of just tear it apart. Some people will use saws. So probably not that, you know, there's probably a more graceful way to do that. Definitely with saws or cutting. But the idea is you want to have, you still have a nice sized chunk of root ball, and then I'm going to replant this. And I'll water it, you know, baby it for a while, and then it's nice. Before I plant it out, I want to make sure these guys have great, you know, nice root balls again. So I'll probably keep it in this pot and, for a while, for like 6 months or so. Well, maybe not for these divisions. The divisions you can plant right away, or if you want, if it's a small root ball, you can spend a couple months rebuilding the root ball. For these cuttings, I'll probably keep them in the pot for 6 months until you get a nice sized root ball, then plant them. That's going to increase your survival rate. Oh, let me grab my... Alright, so the next lesson we're going to learn about is how to prune sweet basil. So this is sweet basil. It's the same with all different kinds of basils. You can know basil has a square stems. So the idea with basil, if you just put one seed in the ground and let it grow, it's just mainly going to be a single stem. You know, one tall branch. It might split on its own for 2 branches, but you'll have some basil, but not a whole lot. But if you prune it, you'll have a nice little bush. And how to prune basil is you want to look at the intersections. And in the intersection, you'll see in the armpits at each intersection, you'll see 2 baby little branches. And if I cut this out right here, all of a sudden is going to be 2 branches. And then if I wait till the next, you know, until they grow some more leaves and I cut those out, then we'll have 4 branches. And I'll cut those out, and all of a sudden we have a giant bush of basil instead of just one little, you know, stem. So definitely recommend that. And what's awesome about pruning basil is you can take this home and eat it as well. Alright, so let's go to the next lesson. We're going to talk about flooding, how to remediate flooding. So that's probably one of the biggest issues in urban farms is flooding. Definitely one of the biggest issues we deal with. Problem is a lot of soil, especially in DC, is very clay based, and it just takes a lot of work to get a farm to not flood. So this used to, you know, like I said, it would rain out here, and then the water would just stay for like weeks and everything would die. It was very tragic. So we did a couple different things to remediate that. First one we did is the water would stay here because there was no overflow. So we installed some French drains. And let me show you what, one of our French drains over here. So this is what you call a gravelless French drain. So normally French drains are pipes with holes in them. Oops. They're corrugated pipes with holes in them. And the idea is when you have a place that floods real bad, you dig a trench, you lay this out in the trench, and the water kind of accumulates in the pipe, and if you give it a very slight incline, it will accumulate in there and then it will go out. And we happen to have Department of Transportation built a bioswale along our road, so we direct all the water to that bioswale out there. But the problem is like with these holes, it would get clogged, so that's why a lot of people would fill it up with gravel. But then you gotta order tons of gravel, wheelbarrow, it's a nightmare. So instead, we order these gravelless French drains, which have what's called socks, and they're full of, I think it's like a poly-based material inside. So that way it keeps the French drain from clogging, so the water still accumulates and it still, exits our farm, and at the same time it never clogs. And then you definitely want to have end pipes so rodents don't get up in there. And then this comes in 10-foot sections, and then you get these little snap couplings. Oh, I see one over here. And you get these couplings and you just snap them together, and then you can have, as much, French drains as you want. So we put 3 of these in here. You can see this one's 100 foot long and goes along this path. So when the water accumulates, when it rains really hard, it all goes into this French drain and then travels out. So that was the first thing we did for flooding. And then the second thing, let me show you. The second thing is we use my favorite tool, all-time favorite tool ever. This is called a broad fork. And this is really fantastic because rototilling, so this place was rototilled every year, and rototill is it's nice at first, but then a rototiller is like a lawnmower that tills the soil, and it tills the first 6 inches, but then it compacts below, and you actually create more flooding with rototilling. So we went ahead and rototilled everything, but then we went back and we broad forked. And what broad fork does is kind of step it down, and then it just kind of pops up, So we broad fork this whole area. Do this and then go 6 inches down. And if you do that into your entire garden, you're going to have amazing drainage. The roots are going to grow super deep. There's going to be plenty of room for your roots. So we did that all over the garden, and then we dug out these paths. So these raised beds are 4 feet wide with 2 to 3 feet paths, and we actually dug a trench, and then all the extra soil we put on top of this bed. So not only do we have this trench, so when it does rain, we filled it up with wood chips. If there is flooding, it all stays in this trench while we raised up. We essentially made a raised bed without buying any wood. So we raised up this bed, got it a foot tall, and then that's where we plant. So we never really have to worry about flooding again. Even in the worst, rain, the aisles may flood, but we won't have any kind of flood into this. So it's between that and the French drain, we've had 0 flooding over the last 2 years. All right. So then we did a couple other things to make our lives much easier that I definitely recommend. The first thing I'm going to talk about is landscape fabric. So this, we didn't do this last year, and we just 90% of our time out here was weeding. It was insane. There was just so much weeds. Especially in the place that's been rototilled for so long. We have a lot of sedge grass, which is this is a nut sedge grass, and this is like one of the worst weeds in the world. I think it's like ranked number 4 or 5 or something. And because if you just leave a little bit of it in the ground, it sprouts another one. And if you go with a rototiller and chop it all up, all of a sudden you have 20 of them. And so that was what happened here for the last decade, and we had a lot of, this is pretty bad. So instead we used woven landscape fabric. It's really important. There's 2 different kinds of landscape fabric. One is unwoven, and that's the kind, if you ever had to pull up landscape fabric and it stuck to your roots and it's really awful. That's the unwoven. That's mainly used for erosion control and things. I wouldn't recommend to put it in your garden. Woven, I definitely recommend. It's permeable, rain will go through it, and it's you can use it year after year and never get stuck to your garden like woven. But how you do that is we made some what we call jigs. So we measured out, you know, so this is like a foot spacing for 5 of them, for 3 rows. This is like a 1.5 feet. So this is what we spaced with a lot of our like you know, tomatoes and eggplants. Let's see. We'll measure out what we want the spacing to be. So this is actually a foot. So most of the times, kale and collards you want 18 inches, but I feel like you can get away with it if you do staggered. If you do 2 and then 3, then 2 and 3, I feel like you can kind of push your limits a little bit more. It's different with every garden and every soil and how productive your soil is and everything. So, but figure out what you want, measure the holes, and then we use this. This is called a hole saw. Be careful with it, and we'll you know, make the holes, and then we'll lay out the fabric, and we get what's called a plumber's blowtorch. So I don't know if we have gas. So we'll put this over the fabric. I'll burn all the holes, and then we'll flip it over, match it to the previous holes, burn those, and then flip it, burn. And then that way we have a pattern, and then we lay that out and we can plant directly in the pattern. I also recently found out that you can order pre-cut holes somewhere. I don't know where, but I know they exist. But that's no fun. I definitely enjoy using blowtorches, so we like to burn our holes. And that will save. I mean, you'll still get some weeds on in the area, but it's really easy to pull. You'll get weeds on the side that you know it's not a big deal. And then it's just made our life so much easier. The next lesson I want to talk about is how to actually harvest kale and collards. So I see this all the time. I see people grow a beautiful kale plant and then they'll harvest it all at once and rip it out. And what they don't realize is you can grow and harvest these all year long. Kale is cool weather crops. Kale and collards. This is collards and this is curly kale. So you plant these usually after April 1st in this area. They can tolerate frost. What cool weather crops are crops you plant in the spring and the fall, and they actually like frost because the cells in the plant is made of water. So when it freezes, like on a tomato plant, it will burst. You know, when water freezes, it expands. But what happens with collards is it actually converts its starch to sugars, makes sugar water, which freezes at a lower temperature. So not only can it survive frost, but it actually tastes sweeter, which is awesome. So, and there's 2 different ways to plant these. We could plant them in the spring, and then you rip them out in the summer because they get kind of bitter and nasty in the summer, and then replant them in the fall. Or what we do is we plant them in the spring. We'll tolerate them in the summer. I mean, they get a little bit bitter. I mean, they're not so bad when you cook them, but you don't want to eat, you know. They're definitely not as sweet in the summer. They'll get a little bitter. They'll get a lot more pests like harlequin beetles. We do a lot of bug squishing. If you can net them with pest covers, that's great. But they won't be that great tasting in the summer. But then in the fall, they'll get sweet again. So if you replant them in the fall, suddenly you got a little baby plant. You got to wait forever to start harvesting. But then if you just keep them going all year long, suddenly you have this massive collard plant in September that you can start harvesting again. That's just as delicious as it was in the spring. So definitely recommend growing them all year long. If you have the space. If you don't have the space, rip them out in the summer. Plant your tomatoes and eggplants and squash, and then if you can, plant them back. But when you're harvesting these, you definitely you want to sculpt them into like a palm tree. So you definitely want to pull out, you know, the biggest bottom leaves. And then you won't want to harvest more than like 1/3 of the plant. As long as you leave a decent amount of the plant, it will keep on growing, and it will just get taller and taller. And you know, by fall, if you're growing them all year long, you got like little mini palm trees. That's pretty fantastic. So don't rip them out. Don't harvest them all at once. You know, just take a couple leaves. You know, about 1/3 of the plant. You know, when you harvest, and then they'll just keep on growing all year long. Oh. And the next thing I want to talk about that's made our lives a million times easier is drip irrigation and water timers. So this is really fantastic. If you don't want to spend, like if we didn't have this, I would have to water this, you know, I'd spend most of my job watering, but instead I actually come out to this farm 2 to 3 times a week, and that's possible because of this drip irrigation. So how the setup is we have, well, first we have a splitter, because maybe we want to hand water, you know, sometimes, so we want to have that option, and then you can turn it on and off. And then this goes into a pressure regulator, and you don't want to use more than 15 psi, which is I forget what it is. It's some kind of pressure regulation, you know, acronym. Anything if it's higher pressure, it's going to blow out your tubes. And then this goes into a filter, because you don't want dirty water clogging up your irrigation. And then it goes into a timer. You can have a single zone. We actually have 4 zones, so we can alternate different zones, so we can water large areas at once. And you can time it to have, you know, water in the summer. I'll have it come on in the morning and in the evening. In the spring, I'll maybe come on every 2 to 3 days, depending on the water source. And then that comes into these large tubes, these 1/2-inch tubes. And then from there, we plug in these regulators, and then that comes into the drip, and that's what's actually going to water. And I have a little bit of I'll show you a little bit how that actually works in real life. Is so we have this, you know, we have the 1/2-inch tubing that's coming out. We got, and you can order if you don't want to figure all this stuff out, you can actually order a kit from DripWorks or Drip something. There's lots of different drip irrigation systems that has the word drip in it. Just Google drip irrigation and it'll come up. But get a kit, it's got everything, all these things. And then where I want the irrigation to start coming out, so this is a hole puncher. And so I'll make a hole, and then I'll plug in one of these guys. And then, so it's like here. And then this is the drip. So the drip, you want the line down, and there's a little hole every couple inches, and then so it drips out. And so it's very slow, so you wouldn't want to put it on for like an hour or so. So it slowly saturates, and that's great to water your soil, because a lot of like tomato diseases and stuff, it will happen when you just spray it with water and it bounces up from the soil. So for this, you just slide this on as best as you can, and then twist this, and then we run this drip out on the line. And on the end part, so you can buy end pieces that cuts it off, or you can just do your own end piece. And so I'm not going to do it very tight, just because it takes me forever to do it. I'm not very good. But you just fold this over. In real life, I would fold this over like 20, you know, as many times as I can, maybe 6 or 7, or probably not that many, but as many as I can. But just going to do it easy for demonstration fit, you know. So fold it over a couple times, you know, fold the edges, and then just slide it into here, and that's how you cap off. So then you have your drip. So the timer here, it goes out to here. You can get a plug from this part, and then it comes out and waters. And this just makes gardening easy. I mean, I manage 3 farms across the city, and I'm able to do that because because I don't have to water each place every day. All right, so the next lesson we're going to talk about is tomato trellising. So we have these are sun gold tomatoes. They're, if you ever have someone that's not sure about tomatoes, give them a sun gold. It's got the highest sugar of all its tomatoes. It's like the sweetest. It's so good. And then we have New Girl. We're waiting. Our T-posts are on back order, so that's why we haven't trellised those. But this is trellis. This is one of my favorite trellising systems. So we have these are called T-posts, 6-foot T-posts that we pound in with stake drivers or a hammer. We space them out 3 feet. We don't want it too far out, so it doesn't bend too far. We use polyester rope, because that bends the least, or stretches the least, as opposed to nylon or polyester, or all different kinds of things. And then we trellis tomatoes for a number of different reasons. One is you can grow them on the ground if you want, but there's a lot of diseases on the ground, and they'll just be covered with diseases. You won't get that much fruit. Also, I like to prune our tomatoes, which I'll show you in a second, and that opens it up, allows more airflow, and I think it gets more fruit, but it's definitely, some people like to prune them, some people don't, but I think everyone likes to get them off the ground. And you could do simple, like a tomato cage. You could do a bamboo pool behind it. But I really like, if you're doing a lot, I like this system. And so I'll attach the rope, and I'll pull it down. And I won't tie it off. Some people will, they'll even they'll when they're burying the seedling, they'll put the rope they'll bury the rope in the hole, and that holds it down. Some people will do a special bowline knot. I just kind of wrap it around a couple times, and the hairs on the tomatoes seem to kind of hold it. And then I kind of wrap it up to the top, and as it keeps on growing, I'll keep on wrapping it up, and that works pretty well. The only thing I would recommend is like on the bottom, you just want to kind of loosen it up every couple weeks, or it will kind of grow into it. So it will definitely kind of suffocate it a little bit. It won't kill it, but it won't, help it. So definitely, if you do this method at least once a month, kind of loosen the bottom a little bit. But that holds pretty well. And then I can go in and prune it really easy. So we have a pruning. Ideally, what you want to do with pruning is you have a single stem stalk that goes up, and then we have what's called suckers. So this is a sucker. Suckers will be like another huge branch. They tend to be very vegetative, a lot of leaves onto it. So it's just you create this big nasty mess of leaves, which some people are into it, and I definitely it will be different conversations on if you get more fruit or not. But I like to prune them because I can see things. I feel like I have less diseases, and I feel like I get more fruit. But that's definitely debatable. But I'll definitely, with these suckers, I'll pull out these suckers, and then I have one nice branch with laterals, and it stays pretty open. And then any branches on the bottom that get yellow, I'll pull those off as well, because that will be different blights. All right, so let's. So I'll show you right now. So we have multiple beds. We have eggplants and peppers, collards, kale, different lettuces. We're trying out different lettuce mixes. Our spinach is bolting. It's too hot for the spinach. Tomatoes, a whole bunch. We do cut flowers back here, broccoli, cabbage, all different kinds of things. These are all romaine heads, super delicious, but if you grow romaine, you better harvest them soon, because this is a sign that it's about to bolt when it starts poking up like that, and then it's going to get bitter at this point. So if you have romaine right about now, we'll probably harvest the rest of these romaines next week, just before they bolt. But you can see half of them are already probably getting bitter. And this is a form of succession crop. So as we pull out the remains, we have extra baby ones that will plug into here, and we're hoping we'll keep on doing this, and then hopefully as it cools down, we'll get the next crop. So this is there's a lot of different ways to do succession crops, but this is one of them. All right, so these are broccolis. So we just harvested most of the broccoli heads, but we're still leaving them in the ground because most broccoli you get one big head on the top, and usually when the little florets are about the size of a matchstick, it's a good time to harvest it. They are heat sensitive, so if you wait too long, they'll bolt. But then you cut the big guy out, and then you get lots of little baby ones as well. So they won't get as big. We'll probably wait a little bit longer, and then we'll harvest all these. And at the same time as well, the broccoli leaves are like the most amazing collards. They're like super sweet collards. So probably next week we'll harvest all the little guys, and then we'll also harvest all the broccoli leaves and give them out as collards. And also, even every part of the broccoli you can eat, even like the stem you can eat. And that I would peel the outside layer, and then it's got a very nutty, kind of taste to it. It's really, really delicious. All right, so over here we got Swiss chard. So there is one pest that's driving us crazy with Swiss. If you're growing Swiss chard, you probably are experiencing it right now, and that is whoa, got holly leaves everywhere that like to poke us. That is leaf miners. So leaf miners are they're these little tiny flies that will fly in, lay their larvae. Sometimes you can catch them, little white, eggs or larvae on the bottom. I've never been able to. And then they get in between the layers of the leaves, and that's a tough part, because then you can't spray them. They're completely protective, and they'll make really beautiful, intricate patterns as they're like mining through your leaf. And then sometimes you could even see them if you have a little microscope, or one of those like field, magnifying glass scopes, whatever. And then they emerge and fly, and then the fly comes out after, and then they'll lay eggs on your other ones. So there's a couple things you could do with this. The best thing that we're finding is yellow sticky traps. So these are sticky traps that attract different kinds of flies and gnats. You can buy them like this. They're organic. These are actually coming in like a kind of pattern. And what's great about these is like so the leaf miner fly is very attracted to these. So if you're growing chard, you can put these. You gotta unpeel them. So one great thing you can use for leaf miners and a lot of other pests is neem. Neem is great organic spray. It's an extract from a neem tree in India. Sometimes it's cut with different kinds of fungicides and insecticides, like this one is. So it's really your preference on how organic you want to get. It's usually different, or it's organic fungicides. It's just like how harsh you want to be. And then this is great for like aphids and leaf miners, and it also works against like mild fungal issues as well. So if you have, you're getting leaf miners, you can spray the leaves, and this won't affect the leaf miners in the leaf, because they're protected, but it will keep the fly from landing and reinfecting it. But the problem is you got to spray it once a week, so it's a lot. Another thing to do is if you already have the infected leaves, if it's real bad, you want to just pull out these leaves before the larvae harvest and fly away, and then throw them in the trash. Don't compost them. So once a week we'll pull out all the infected leaves and throw it in the trash. And between those three different, I think from the sticky traps to occasional neem to pulling out the leaves, we've been able to get a lot of chard, even though we have a lot of leaf miners right now. And then when we do
the sticky trap again, just what it looks like.
Yeah. And then and you can still eat this. It's not bad. I mean, if it's just a little bit, we'll tear off that and serve it. I mean, we're not trying to sell things right now. So I mean, this is one way to do it. All right. So we got our peas right now. Peas are fantastic. These are snap peas. They're cool weather stuff. As you can see, they're starting to dry up, and then we'll plant beans. But it's always good to have one section of your garden with peas in the spring and beans later, and then move that section around the garden, because this is what you call a nitrogen fixer. So their legumes are nitrogen fixers, so it actually pulls nitrogen from the air and then deposits it in these little nodules. It has this like symbiotic bacterial relationship, and then that will, and if you leave that, like we'll cut them at the stem and leave those roots in the ground, that will actually fertilize your soil. So if you do that, peas and beans in one part and then move it around your garden, you'll slowly fertilize your entire garden. Alright, I just want to show you so this is corn. So we do corn. Corn's, you have to have a lot of room to make corn really worthwhile, because you get 1 to 2 years per stalk, so it's like, we could, so that could be like, a couple, like a dozen, corn cobs, which is nice, but it's not like a big impact. But this is actually my wife's idea. Instead of growing straight up corn, we're actually doing popcorn. So we're gonna actually have a popcorn festival this spring. or this fall. So we'll be, so this is a great way. So if you do want to grow corn and you want it to feed a lot of people and make it like a community thing, grow popcorn, definitely. And then that comes out and you can, it's just like Jiffy Pop, old school. All right, so this is the last lesson on the tour. You can see over here, this is our food forest. We have different berries and blueberries and sweet cherries and different things, over here. But the last lesson I want to talk about is a wattle fence. So this was our winter project. It was probably, it was one of the most fun projects I've done. I love wattle fences. So we took down this dying Zelkova tree. We still got the stump over there, but we cut down all the branches to kind of open up this area. And then we also have lots of beehives in the back here. We actually have some communal beehives. And we actually, every summer, we're about to harvest these soon, and we give out raw honey to the community as well during the veggie giveaways. But we needed a barrier for them to go up. If you give a barrier with bees, they'll go up and they'll stay up for a while. And before we had a barrier, I mean, they don't attack you, but they would definitely get stuck in my, I think they thought my hair was a flower and they would get stuck and then they would sting me. So that we would get occasional stings. So we decided to build this wattle fence. Where we took like the biggest branches and we used a hole digger and we dug out like a 2-foot hole, put the branches in the ground, secured it, backfilled it every like 3 feet, and then we took these flexible. So once we had that in place, so that took a little while. We put a string. Great way to build a fence. You put a string across here, and then you can line up each branches with a string. And then we got, hundreds of these. What's great about wattle fence is you don't need like hardware, we don't need screws, we don't need anything. All you need is just pressure. So we can, maybe we'll do this and then we'll just weave it. And then, well, this one's you need a little bit more. So we'll just weave it. And then the pressure of it, on its own between weaving will hold it. Especially if you have long ones, if you weave it, 4 or 5 times, the pressure itself. I mean, these are in. Some of them are longer, but some of them are pretty well in there. So this is, if you want a free, fence, it did take us, it took us a decent amount of time. Maybe like 2 weeks to put this together, but it's super fun to do. And then we planted some passion flowers in the bottom. We're going to be growing passion flower vines all along this as well. All right, well that is the end of our educational virtual tour of Lederer Gardens. Thank you so much for coming along to this tour. We are always looking for not only more volunteers to come out and learn how to farm with us, but we're also looking for people who just want free veggies. So especially if you're available during the weekdays, or even if you could self-harvest on the weekends, definitely come on out or send me an email. I do a weekly email update. We have 3 of these communal farms. Lederer Gardens is the biggest one in Ward 7, but we also have one in Ward 5 and Ward 1. So if you want, if you want to have a weekly email update about volunteer opportunities, harvesting opportunities, and we also do a lot of workshops. We do cider press, workshops. We have a cider press. We do propagation workshops. We do plant giveaways. So if anyone's interested, send me an email and I'll put you on the list. Thank you all so much and have a great day.